Hey, good morning.
Morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Good. My garage band's been practicing for 3 weeks now, and we've got a gig at the all-night shopping, Rob. And what kind of gear does that entitle me to, Buzz, for an endorsement?
Well, uh, uh, sir, I'd like to know exactly what drums are you playing right now on the gig?
I'm not sure. They came from the pawn shop.
Oh, fun shop. Uh, well, at this point in your career, have you determined what type of drums you really like?
It really doesn't matter to me.
Oh,
But
uh,
getting to the point here, Buzz, did you ever have any conversation on that order with anybody when you were with Honer?
not that much of a novice,
Right.
but people that have a CD out or had an album out, or and we're just getting, starting. What happens is I think management companies actually ask their artists when they get ready to go on tour, they ask them, well, do you have endorsements that can help support you basically while you're on tour to support the product that you record or whatever?
Mm-hmm.
Because what bands do, I mean, I'm pretty sure what bands do. I've never had a record. Well, I had a small recording contract, but that was nothing really. And I mean, if you happen to record something or a couple of albums and you have a contract for 2 or 3 albums, then they're going to want you to go out and tour to support the record and promote the record. So they ask the artists that are involved, well, what endorsements do you have to help support you on the road? Like, they don't want to go out there and have broken drum heads and drums breaking and stuff. They want to know what companies you have behind you as an artist to take care of you while you're on the road.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I think some of this gets started, with wanting, trying to be endorsed. What endorsements do you have? Like I said, that always rubbed me the wrong way anyway, because I always figured, people endorse product. Product doesn't endorse people.
Yeah, you touched on that during the interview we did.
Right, exactly. And I still believe that too. I think it's pretty much ridiculous. Now, I've had people call me for endorsements for cases that people don't even see on stage, for the most part. They're in the truck, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That, so it's not even a question. I mean, I never do that kind of stuff. I tell them, I'll give you a special price or something, but that's about it.
Now, when they ask you for an endorsement, what do they consider an endorsement? Do they think you're going to load them up with a bunch of free gear?
Yes. And it has gotten outlandish for some of these bigger, stars. Like, I mean, I remember when Tony Williams was approaching Sonar for drum sets, and he wanted 2 drum sets in East Coast, West Coast in the United States, drums in Asia, drums in Europe, on every continent, 5 to 10 drum sets. And that was a big drum set. 3, 4 times, a bunch of stuff. And support, and transpo, and, and everything for the drums.
Wow.
It's not just the gear sometimes. It's transportation to and from venues. So if the drums are at a rental location, like in the U.S., at SIR on one of the coasts or Chicago or something, Sonar or the distributor who's handling Sonar would have to pay SIR to transport the drums to the location for the artists to use for a concert or whatever, and be responsible for me. And then also at all these rental locations, the distributor or the manufacturer is responsible for maintaining the gear at those locations and upgrading it every year to new drum sets. So, I mean, what's the sense of having a 5-year-old drum set in a rental location out on tour somewhere? It doesn't it doesn't even let the consumer see the new gear if you don't replace it every year. Well, that gets to be extremely expensive, as you can imagine.
Now, you just made me think about something I haven't considered before. How hands-on would the distributor have to be with getting the gear moved? I mean, was there a potential to drop the ball and somebody show up and not have gear?
Yes.
Well, that could be a logistical nightmare if you've got a boatload of endorsed artists.
Oh, of course it is. Yeah, you can't do it. HSS. I did a lot of that. You know, sending drum sets for. I did artist maintenance.
Mm-hmm.
You know, for the most part, I mean, the guys in the U.S. could take like Adam Nussbaum, Will Kennedy, Jack DeJohnette, Steve Smith. They all had their own drums. They all had drum sets provided for them. So they, most of the time, would want to use their own sets. Now, if they're doing a clinic tour or something, like for Steve Smith, we'd have to provide drums at every, sell the dealer. To get a clinic, the dealer would have to buy the kit, usually, for Steve to use. And it's usually a very expensive kit, of course, top-of-the-line stuff, because they didn't use Performer. They weren't using, Force series or something. He wouldn't even play it. He had to play what he normally plays to do a clinic. And the same with DeJohnette, basically, although some of the jazz guys were a little more easy to work with in that respect. I mean, they would play just about anything.
What do you think the biggest misconceptions with endorsements would be? Local guys that really aren't going to get any exposure for the brand at all anyway.
Right.
That contact you for endorsements. What is it? What is their expectation?
They expect to see themselves in a magazine, have free gear, and see themselves in Modern Drummer or one of these drum magazines. As I mentioned before, you can only make use of so many artists per year in any type of ad, even if you're even doing artist-type ads, quote-unquote, artist ads. Mm-hmm. There's product ads. There's artist ads. There's contest ads. There's stuff like that. There's different types of ads to put in a magazine to stimulate sales. And, it becomes a question of how do you get the best bang for your buck for $2,500 for a full-page ad?
Right.
Per issue or more. I bet it's even more now. I don't even know what it is for a full page of Modern Drummer.
I think everything's more now.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. I mean, so, they expect that they're going to be, or they're going to get, and the other misconception is that they're going to be lined up to do clinics. They all think they should do clinics and be put on a clinic tour. Well, I mean, come on, seriously. How many dealers are going to do clinics in a year? How many drum companies are there? And how many sonar clinics are they going to do in a year? One, maybe.
Yeah.
How many clinics are they going to do? Like Portland Drum Shop, how many clinics do you think he does in a year? 6, maybe? 5, 6?
I wouldn't even be able to give you an educated guess on that.
Well, I'm guessing it's not that many. They can't afford it.
Right.
And there are a lot of different drum companies. Gretsch, Ludwig, Tama, DW, Sonar, Yamaha. They all have incredible artists that that do clinics. And we always tried to do a clinic program, have some kind of a clinic program for our big guys, because DeJohnette would do occasionally every 2 or 3 years, he'd do PASIC convention. We'd have to pay for all that. And then, and then Steve Smith would want to do PASIC. He does it about every 2 or 3 years. I think Adam Nussbaum did a jazz educators convention for us. Will Kennedy has done the jazz educator convention. They used to, I don't think that's in operation anymore, but that used to be a big deal too. So the expense of maintaining or making use of an endorser roster is astronomical at this point. I mean, you just can't do it. You're lucky if you can get 1 or 2 artist ads into magazines.
Mm-hmm.
Because you want to advertise your new products too. because people don't all go to the NAMM show and see the stuff, and dealers don't stock all the stuff. So how does anybody see any of this stuff? Luckily, online presence has changed that a little bit. The Sonar's got a pretty good website, so they can, people can see everything.
Right. Yeah, I think they've got a really good website.
Yeah. So that's helped. So I think one of the main things, misconceptions, is that expectation of advertising in clinics. That's probably two of the biggest misconceptions that they have. They think, they expect the free gear, and often are taken aback that you're going to charge them.
Mm-hmm. Now, charging for the gear, your upper-level endorsers, are they buying their own gear?
Well, there's a lot of upper-level endorsers, and every situation is a little bit different. Sometimes they get the drums in exchange for clinics, to do clinics in Europe or Japan. So we'll give you this drum set. We'd like you to do, 2 to 5 clinics or something, depending on what gear it is and how much how much value there is. But they help work it off. It's an exchange. It's a trade-off, with the artist.
I remember years ago, they were talking to Modern Drummer, and somebody mentioned that Sonar does not pay endorsers. Now,
no, they do not. They don't pay endorsers outright. No.
Did anybody ever? Was that ever a common thing in the drum industry?
Oh, hell yeah. I have no doubt Buddy Rich was paid. Oh, yeah. And other guys, too. I mean, and it got to be out of hand. Sonar never really paid people, quote-unquote, cash outlay. They would guarantee them, it's an exchange. That's a trade. So they would say, Sonar didn't pay him cash to be an endorser every month. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Send him a check. No, that doesn't happen. What they would do is they would say, okay, this year for our contract, let's do 4 clinics. We'll pay you to do 4 clinics to promote the gear.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you make use of an endorser. That's not exactly paying. You're paying them for their services.
Right.
Not paying them just to be a personage or a star. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. They worked. Most of them worked off their gear.
I think we touched on this before too, but the people that would come to you for Sonar endorsements, I'm talking the legitimate ones. Did they have a specific passion for Sonar, or were they just fishing, or what was the story with that?
I'd say 50-50. Of course, back when I was in it, Sonar was definitely considered the top of the heap in construction and everything. Mm-hmm. Everybody, all the other drum companies are trying to aspire to that high-end level of Mercedes-Benz type manufacturing. I mean, the best materials, the best, everything, the best finishes, the thicker hoops, better chrome plating, whatever.
Right.
Everybody was aspiring to that. So drummers knew this, of course, and they talk to other drummers, and they see Steve Smith, and they see the top drummers in some of the top drummers, Steve Jeanette, Will Kennedy. I'm just, the guys from, not Megadeth, but, who are AC/DC, some of the heavier bands, a lot of them from Europe play, Mickey D and those guys. The heavy metal drummers definitely saw the other heavy metal drummers, what they were playing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, jazz drummers have traditionally played played Slingerland, Gretsch, and drum sets like that as much as Sonar, or more than Sonar in the United States for sure. I would have to say Gretsch probably is on the majority of the jazz records that have ever been made. Well, except for big band, and that would be Slingerland, probably. But I don't know if that's accurate. But a lot of jazz drummers play Gretsch. There's no doubt.
Right.
And that's how Gretsch got off the ground in Brooklyn, was supporting all the black jazz artists. So they see those artists playing that, and they're drummers that are in the similar type bands that they're in, and they go, well, hell, I want to play that, because they know if they're playing it, maybe they can get in. So they know it's the highest priced drum set, or maybe, or it's something really good quality, so they want to try Sonar. Mm-hmm. That happens a lot. More than people going out to buy a Sonar set probably at that time. Although people did buy Phonic and Phonic Plus. I mean, a lot of people bought those drums for the heavy metal type, because they're loud drums. They're loud and they're durable,
Yeah. Have you paid attention to how many people are playing DW these days?
I have not.
They have an unholy number of endorsers, not to mention the local guys that buy them, obviously.
Right.
I'm curious about their endorsement program and what in the world the attraction to DW is, because it seems like people that move around between drum companies a time or two wind up with DW, especially in the U.S.
My guess is they're buying them at cost or some price from them directly, and then they make an endorser, so it makes them look like they have this huge endorser roster, which they do. I agree. Well, when I was with Sabian, Sabian's endorser roster was almost 400 people at one point. It was out of hand. You can't make use of that kind of people. You can't even list them in a list on one page,
But you know what? Think about a different kind of exposure, though. And I'm just throwing this out. I don't know what I'm talking about, but say you're 400 Sabian artists. They're not able to make use of them in the magazines and all that kind of stuff, but on tour, when you show up to the concert and this guy's got a rocking drum sound and he's playing Sabian cymbals.
That's an impact. Yeah, that makes an impact.
Well, could that be part of the reasoning behind having a large roster like that?
Well, yeah, but you got to remember, we as drummers think, we look to see what people are playing. But in general, the listening public that goes to a concert, what percentage of them are drummers?
Oh, very small.
Or even musicians. It's not a big percentage. On a concert tour, yeah, sure, people go see Neil Peart, and what do they say? They say, oh, wow, he's got an incredibly big drum set. Mm-hmm. And he does, and that's cool. And he plays Sabian, and they might notice that. The general public might notice it. But does that type of, yes, it does. It does help. It can't hurt, but it's a small influence, I think. Although I look, because we're musicians, we look on an award show to see if somebody's playing.
Right. I'm definitely going to look. If I'm anywhere near gear, I'm going to see what somebody's got. Yeah, me too. I am too. But we're gearheads. We are kind of gearheads, Oh, so. Definitely.
So, but in general, that's always been a question. And you talk to marketing people that do marketing, and we're not talking about advertising a car. Mm-hmm. You put an ad on for, some kind of ibuprofen or something on TV, and people are looking. You hit a large target audience, right? But with a drum, you put a drum ad on a TV, who gives you? What percentage of people are even, nobody cares. It doesn't work.
All right, well, going back to the 400 Sabian artists.
Yeah, they cut it back.
Well, how and why did it ever get so big?
Because they're trying to compete against Zildjian, who has the same problem. That's why.
Okay.
Basically.
Well, what was the anticipated result of having that many artists on the roster?
Oh, Sabian, that definitely, having those artists and having the artist roster, they have an incredibly good artist roster. They have easily as good an artist roster as Zildjian, if not better. It helped them a lot. And the fact that drummers saw in magazines that these guys were all switching from Paiste or Zildjian to Sabian, that makes a big impact. That makes a big impression. And some people shift back the other way. Will Kennedy was a Paiste guy, and he went to the Paiste Sonar, and he went to Zildjian Pearl, for God's sake. There's some allegiance, and some artists are caught up in the thing that their sound is connected to the instruments that they use to record or with or are seen with and heard with. Some artists think that's all connected into their whole sound. Other artists think, oh, maybe my sound's getting old. I want to switch to a whole different thing. And it does make you play differently if you switch from Paiste to Zildjian or Sabian.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're
That's
definitely
a totally
two different
animal.
I was fixed to use that exact same word myself.
I mean, generally speaking, they'll probably try to get their drums to sound the same as they always do. The way they tune them, you know, you can get a drum to sound pretty much similar. Although, well, I won't say no. Some drums just don't sound that good, no matter what you do.
Yeah.
I mean, they're definitely. I don't think a Yamaha recording custom sounds like anything that Sonar makes. Now, I never thought they sounded very good. They're very, I thought they sounded. If it weren't for Dave Weckl, I don't think, and recording that stuff with with mics and processing and everything, that drum set never would have caught on at all. But it did, and people still talk about it,
Did you have a favorite endorser when you were the product manager with Hohner?
Oh, favorite? Oh, I had a lot of favorite endorsers. I had a lot of favorite. I won't say I had a favorite one, but I mean, there's a lot of great guys. They're all.
Typically, did you have to deal with a lot of rock star attitude with those guys, or were they pretty down to earth?
The rock guys have the rock star situation going on. The jazz guys that are really drummers, those guys, lower maintenance usually. The rock guys, higher maintenance. The other guys, the jazz guys, are so well respected and have made so many incredible recordings that they're busy all the time and they don't really have time to. Unless there's a worldwide tour or something they're doing, like Jack used to do this tour with the Standards tour with, I forget who it was, that piano player it was a trio. They went out, did the Standards tour. They did that a bunch, and that would require a little bit of work, to get logistically to get things going and everything. But for the most part, the high maintenance guys were the rock guys. And they were going through equipment a little bit more too, I mean, they're a little bit more abusive on equipment, so.
Yeah.
So parts and labor and stuff were a little higher for them. But I hate to forget anybody. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but I had a lot of favorites. I mean, a lot of guys I really liked. There weren't many I didn't like. I have to just say that. There weren't many endorsers for Sonar that weren't nice guys. And Slingerland, too. I have to say, for both. I mean, Jimmy Cobb for Slinger was a sweetheart. I mean, he was a good guy. A really good guy named Louis Hayes. All those guys. I met a bunch of different jazz artists with Slingerland, different from Sonar guys.
Were you there when Todd Sucherman left Sonar?
Ooh, let me think. I think I may have been gone by that time.
Well, he addressed some of this stuff in, I think, the first interview I did with him, and he felt like he couldn't get on Sonar's radar.
He's a great guy, and he's a great player, and he's a great spokesman for Sonar. It's a shame that that didn't develop, but you do, things change, whatever.
Yeah. Well, his videos I think are real popular in the drum world too.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a shame that, it has to be somebody other than Sonar in those videos.
It's not unlike the Vinnie Colaiuta situation. Okay. Vinnie played Yamaha forever on the road, all right? Mm-hmm. He was Yamaha endorser because Sonar couldn't support him. He was a Sonar endorser at the beginning when Charles Alden Company had it.
Yeah. He
and Steve Smith went to Berkeley together. They were roommates, I think, or they traveled all the time. He used to tell me stories about, Vinnie would make Steve drive so he could practice on the dashboard. So anyway, he's playing Yamaha, but he was recording all the time with Gretsch. And his love was with Gretsch, and he used to tell Fred this all the time. And finally, after about 5 or 6 years, he switched over to Gretsch and I've got to come out of the closet. Remember that crap?
Actually don't know.
Well, that happened, yeah. Anyway, and Harvey Mason was playing Gretsch, and he liked Harvey's playing, and Tony Williams was a Gretsch player, and Cindy Blackman was really a Gretsch artist too. I don't know why she got connected up with Sonar. She just needed free gear. That's what that was about, and then Vinny stuck with Gretsch for a while, and now we think he's with Ludwig. I mean, come on. And those drums do not sound the same. Sorry.
The Ludwigs?
Yamaha doesn't sound like Gretsch. Gretsch doesn't sound like Ludwig. You. Not at all.
No, Gretsch always sounds like Gretsch.
Yeah.
They've got a unique thing, do they not?
Yeah, and it hasn't changed over the years. They're making a bunch of different versions of Gretsch drums right now, but they're all legit, except for the Chinese stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, they had a special shell recipe or formula or whatever it was years ago, and I think even though they've had to change manufacturers, I think they've always stuck with that same build.
Yeah, it's pretty much, yeah.
Who was the most fun to work with? Was there anybody that stands out?
Oh, fun to work with?
Or whatever. I mean, I'm just kind of grasping at straws here.
I think DeJeanette. I ended up, when I went to work at Sabian, I ended up putting together that camera product line. And it ended up that Jack DeJeanette was in, and his wife were into this healing bells and all that kind of chakras and all that musical therapy type thing. And so they started working on, Sabian had developed some kind of a bell disc, kind of, not a disc, but a cast bell.
Yeah,
and
I think I remember what you're talking about.
Actually, what it came from out of this, we were doing Sabian Collectibles, which was a line of gifts for high-end gift shops, including we had some gongs, some wind chimes, we had this acoustic doorbell. Did I tell you about this?
No, I don't remember that.
Okay, there was a line. It was a line that I worked on developing, in addition to doing the Camber product line and some accessories for Sabian and Camber, which I did all that. I was working on this line of. They wanted to get into the gift market and try to make. Dan Barker wanted us to, develop some stuff for the gift market, because we make musical instruments and people were making wind chimes, and we said he had the idea. Well, if anybody can make wind chimes, we've got the best metal. We could probably make. And most of it was coming from overseas. We'll make some high-end wind chimes and some different things. And so I started thinking about it and ended up developing this thing called an acoustic doorbell, which was a wrought iron type G-clef thing that sits by your door and had two bells hanging down that were cast aluminum globes. I had a Chinese doorbell, or what was called a Chinese doorbell, with 5 pitches that I got at an antique store. Mm-hmm. That you can see pictures of them online, different things, and they hung. There's 5 different sizes, and they sounded beautiful. They were brass, but I decided to make a Chinese doorbell with just 2 bells that went ding dong.
Yeah.
Okay, and there was a carved wooden beater attached with rawhide somehow to the bottom of this Jeep. So a person could come to your front door and instead of pressing a bell, go hit the 2 bells, ding dong, which was kind of a very cool gift idea.
Yeah.
And we made a couple other elaborate garden gongs, and I've got a brochure of it. I could send you a brochure and you could look at it and get the idea. But anyway, so I worked on all that stuff. Well, out of that ding dong thing, Jack saw the possibility to do a full octave of those bells. similar, not aluminum. They made them out of something else, I believe. I think it was bronze. Slightly different design, but he developed. We worked with him, with Nord Hargrove up there. He was good friends with Jack, and we worked on that whole project together. And I made the mounts to go, which were to go on his drum set, around his drum set. He put these on top of his cymbals and used them like he's a piano player. So he used these bells, pitched bells, an octave of bells above his cymbals to make music with. And I don't know if you know the way he plays, but when they developed all the cymbals for Jack, they were very pitch sensitive, and he played the cymbals. Nobody could play the first bunch of cymbals except for Jack, because he played them like a piano. And then with these bells on top of them, he had another octave of, to play music with metal, basically. It was a very cool idea. Anyway, and I worked with him, and we worked a lot with, setting it up and talking together and everything. He was great to work with. Really, really creative and just a sweet, and just a nice guy. Just a really, really professional, straight ahead artist.
You ever have any contact with guys like him?
Yeah, I mean, I usually try to contact them at Christmas and wish them Merry Christmas and stuff like that, but that's about it. And then, I've had other guys. I mean, I had a good time with Steve Smith and a very good time with Adam Nussbaum. Nussbaum's a great guy, man. He's great, too. He'll give a great interview. He's got all kinds of stories.
Has he got a good sense of humor?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Because the reason I ask, he puts these thumbs up things on whenever he emails me. These little, characters, whatever they are, and just kind of, I'm thinking this guy must be kind of fun,
Oh, he is. He's great. He's great to deal with, and Will Kennedy's great too. But I didn't have that much time to do that. And I did talk to Mickey D over the years several times, and he was very nice. He was very nice. I never did talk to the guy from AC/DC on the phone.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's other guys I'm forgetting. Sonar had so many. Oh, I know Jerry Brown. I used to deal with Jerry Brown.
And what was he like?
Very easy to work with. Very easy. And I think he was with Stevie Wonder. Who was he playing with? I can't remember back then in the 80s.
I think he was, and the reason I remember that, I used to just study Modern Drummer magazine like crazy, especially the ads. And I think you're right. I think he was with Stevie Wonder.
Yeah, and he was, and Bernard Purdy was a sweetheart to deal with. He wanted a lot, but he was always super, and he's still to this day, when we see each other at trade shows and stuff, he asks how I'm doing, and we talk, and he's very nice guy. But he dropped Sonar dropped him.
Well, back to Mickey D. Was he an endorser in the States, or did he have his through Germany?
I think he had it through Germany, but he came over here, Oh, I know. Was Nico McBrain? Yeah, Nico McBrain. I dealt with him a lot. He's nice, too. Very nice guy.
You sent me a picture of you two together.
Yeah. Super nice guy.
Well, it's a good thing he's back. I'm glad he's back with Sonar.
Yeah, that is good.
Without mentioning any names, did you have any situations come up where you just really wish you never had to deal with a particular artist again?
No, because not that I can recall. I mean, they would just, if they weren't satisfied, they would just leave and jump to another company. I mean, my hands were tied to a certain degree. I couldn't give away anything, unless it was the stuff that I made, the Chinese stuff or something like that, where the cost to promote it was so low that it made sense,
Yeah. Did you have any? You didn't have any name acts playing your Chinese stuff, though, did you? I mean,
Sonar or Sonar stuff or Slingerland stuff. I had all kinds of named people playing the Slingerland stuff. Oh
yeah.
My God!
Yeah, you mentioned that in the interview too, with the, the stuff with the
Mm.
drummers in New York and all that. And
Oh yeah, it was a serious roster. Yeah.
any
In
closing?
fact, I can send you, if you look, or I can send you the flyer of the first batch of endorsers I signed that we used as an ad.
Yeah, I'd like that.
Yeah, I can send you that. That's pretty impressive. It's really impressive. And those guys were recording every week. Oh, man. It was ridiculous.
Wow.
And that was a way to make use of artists that worked. That worked.
Can you elaborate?
Well, they were playing a drum set that was not extremely mid-priced, very mid-priced drum set, smaller drums, well, they're jazz configurations, mostly all jazz configurations.
Mm-hmm.
We were aiming at jazz artists, aiming at jazz, Slingerland and jazz, which what I believed was back in the heyday when, in the 40s, the big band era, before the bebop era even, but the big band era, the drum sets that were being played were mostly Slingerland and Leedy and Ludwig. Probably 50, 25, 25.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that. 50, 35, 15, something like that. But the big bands you see playing, almost all those guys, the main guys, Gene Krupa and Buddy Rich, they were Slingerland guys. And I focused on that to develop the line, to aim at jazz guys. And then looked at what Gretsch had done back in their day in New York and kind of patterned my marketing strategy to get all these drummers that were in New York, the young lions of that day, of that era, the late 80s, early 90s, and get them playing Slingerland. And when I sent them a drum set and they played the drums, even with import heads on them, import-coated heads, they fell in love with the sound of those drums. Not just because they were free, because I gave the drum sets to them, but because they sounded so damn good. So they started using them on all these recordings. And I endeared all these guys to Slingerland. Back, got them. I mean, even some of the older artists that were with Slingerland before I got back, Dennis DeLucio and a couple other guys. And I had some other rock guys, Maruga. I forget his name was Maruga. He played with Parliament Funkadelic guys, and he was traveling worldwide, and he was playing a Slingerland light kit, and then I had just spotty all over the place with the rock thing, but the jazz guys, we were playing an relatively inexpensive drum set that sounded perfect, sounded exactly right to the genre of music. And that meant kids could all afford to buy the drums that the artists were playing.
For somebody out there who believes they would be endorser material, what would you recommend them to do to make themselves stand out from everybody else trying to get free gear?
I think the best thing, I think the era of free gear is coming to a close just based on the market of drum sales right now. I don't think any drum company is setting the world on fire. That's putting it mildly. The best thing I think somebody could do probably would be find their sound, what they like, and endorse and buy what they like to play, and then approach the manufacturer or the distributor of that particular brand and approach their artist relations director from that thing. I already play these drums. I'm just, I don't know what they need, but, I don't know what these guys would need in support, but if they, they have to decide what they think they might need in support and find out if a drum company can, is interested. It all depends where they are in their, if they're on tour. The only way, they've got to be on tour to support a product that they've got out.
Mm-hmm.
And they've got to present that to the artist director and say, look, I'm going to be doing these cities, and I'm playing your drums already. I'm just wondering if you've got a new product you'd like me to promote for you. I would be glad to be, I'd be interested in endorsing this quote unquote X drum company. And I was wondering if there's anything you could help me out with. Is there something you want to show on tour, or I could take some pictures? They've got to help promote the drum company. I mean, that's what artist directors should be looking for. And then if the band happens to get hot, then they do something. Then maybe the drum company would be willing to invest some money in them. I've always looked at it, and it was great to do this with Sonar and Slingerlands, both of them, because both Slingerlands and Sonar's name have been ingrained in Europe, especially Sonar, with the artists that have come out of Europe. Mm-hmm. But let's just take Slingerland, for instance. In the United States, Slingerland's name was synonymous with artists that were making great music. I mean, that big band era of music, and then the whole jazz idiom from then on, and then into Chicago. I mean, remember the drummer for Chicago was a Slingerland player. I mean, because Slingerland was in Chicago, of course. Mm-hmm. I always looked at it, when I was looking at artists, I was thinking about the music in the back of my head. I mean, I was trying to connect the manufacturing and the sound of the drums with the music that the artists were playing, to make it one strong, force together. You got the artist, you got the music, and you got the product.
Very interesting insight.
I mean, I had some killer drummers playing that. I mean, Diana Krall's, what was his name? Louis Nash. When Louis Nash was with Diana Krall, he was playing Slingerland. Mm-hmm. I mean,
I understand Slingerland was a specialized thing in a certain genre of music, but just you're running Brand X Drum Company, or you're handling artist relations or whatever. You got some guys on the road that represent a kind of music that's not real favorable to you. Do you think that in today's market you'd have a different attitude about bringing them on board?
Yeah, I probably would. I probably would have a little bit. I would. I mean, I'm probably too old to be in artist relations at this point.
And for that kind of reason?
Because I don't listen to I don't listen to everything that's out, I mean, I know there's all kinds of different bands out there right now, and all kinds of different players playing all kinds of different music. It's more of a world beat thing going on. I think that's what's going on. And, I think to be in artist relations now, you have to be, I think you need to be probably in your 30s. I don't know that for sure. Could be a younger person too.
Basically,
it depends. You need somebody with young ears.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what I was getting at. Yeah, is it a acceptance of the current music trends and all that you're going for there? And
Right, right.
yeah,
I mean, I think you have to be on the cutting. In artist relations, you have to be on the cutting edge. I mean, Sabian was always and still is always trying to find that new artist that might hit in a younger genre of player.
mm-hmm.
And they've been very good at doing that. And Sonar does it too. Sonar comes up with all these guys I've never heard of that are really good. I mean, there's all kinds of great drummers out there. And Sonar's always gone for the drummer's drummer a little bit. They've gone a little bit, for the AC/DC heavy rock genre from Europe. And then they've gone also for the player's player, drummer's drummer. I think you have to have both. You don't need a ton of them. You just need the right ones.
Yeah. What do you think of Sonar's endorsement roster right now?
I think it's very good. I think it's excellent.
Was Jack DeJohnette still on there, or did he jump ship?
No, he's lifelong. Yeah, he's there.
Well, him and Steve Smith, and there's several that have just stayed the course for a long time. And I know Steve Smith did or does endorse DW's pedals and I think hardware. Maybe not hardware. I know pedals, though.
Pedals, not hardware, yeah.
Yeah, and other than that, though, he's still a Sonar man through and through, as far as I know.
Yeah.